Hello there, all my lovely fairy tale friends, and a warm welcome to SoundTales. My name is Fina, and something very special is happening today. Because when this story is released, it's Halloween, and I wanted to give you something magical, something mysterious, something you've never quite heard before. These days, Halloween is celebrated here in Sweden too, with pumpkins, ghosts, and trick-or-treating, just like in many other places. But when I was little, we didn't celebrate Halloween at all. Instead, we had something older, a deeper kind of magic. Because in the forests of Sweden and all across the Nordic countries, we've told stories for thousands of years. Our stories. Stories of hidden beings, forest spirits, creatures that live in the shadows of the trees. And some of them are not as friendly as the one you might know. You may have heard of trolls and gnomes, but have you heard of the Neck or the Skogsrå? In today's tale, you'll meet Livia, a girl who hears strange whispers in the wind, and Mylla, a being who looks human, but isn't quite. This story isn't an old fairy tale passed down for generation written by some old, very dead author. It's something new, written by me, but inspired by ancient Swedish folklore. And this is just the beginning, because this story is part 1 of a brand new series, Hidden Beings, Tales of magical creatures from forests around the world. Today, we begin in Sweden, but soon we may travel far beyond to other lands, other myths, other secrets waiting to be heard. And maybe, if you listen very closely, you'll hear the forest whisper your name too. This is part 1 of Hidden Beings, and today's story is called Mylla's Secret. Chapter 1: The Arrival. Livia stood by the gate, watching her parents' car disappear around the bend. A cloud of dust lingered in the air for a moment, then settled. Silence. Behind her stood the small red house. In front of her, the forest stretched, dark and dense, so close that the lowest branches nearly touched the roof. October had painted the leaves in copper and gold, but beneath the trees it was already dusk, right in the middle of day.
Come on now, Livia, before the cold bites.
Grandma Viola called from the porch. She was holding the door open. Warm light spilled out. Livia lifted her bag and climbed the steps. Grandma smelled the way she always had, like cinnamon and pine needles and something else, something she couldn't quite name, something old. Inside, the house was warm and red-brown. A fire crackled in the tiled stove. Jars of dried herbs stood everywhere, along with carved wooden figures and oddly shaped stones. From the ceiling, twigs hung, tied with red yarn.
Your parents said you've been a bit quiet lately, that you needed to get away, a break from the city, So spending autumn break here with me sounds just right,
Grandma Viola said as she poured hot chocolate into 2 mugs. Livia only nodded. It was true. She hadn't really had anyone to talk to at school. Not the way she wanted to talk. Not about what really mattered.
You know, people in the village think I'm strange,
Grandma suddenly said, with a crooked smile.
They say I talk to the forest, to the trees. As if that's crazy somehow.
She blew on her hot chocolate.
But you and I, Livia, we know better, don't we?
Livia looked up. Grandma's eyes were bright and watchful. There was something in them. Something that saw more than most.
What do you mean?
Livia asked quietly. Grandma Viola set her cup down.
You see, Livia, the forest here is old. Very old. It remembers things we've forgotten. And sometimes, when someone listens closely enough, it remembers us too,
she said, leaning in.
There are creatures here, Livia. The ones I've told you about. Gnomes, earth spirits, Näcken, forest spirits. The ones who guard the trees and the animals. The ones who punish those who take too much and help those who give. The villagers think I'm crazy when I talk about them, but I know what I've seen.
She looked out the window toward the woods.
When I was little, Livia, not much older than you, I had a friend here. One no one else could see. Mother Earth gave me that gift. But then I made a mistake. And I never saw my friend again.
She fell silent. Her eyes grew distant, filled with something that looked like sorrow.
What happened?
Livia whispered. Viola slowly shook her head.
That's a story for another day. But remember this, Livia. If the forest whispers to you, you listen. But always show respect. Some things don't want to be seen. And some secrets are not ours to take.
Livia nodded, even though she didn't quite understand. That night she lay in Grandma's guest bed, the blanket pulled up to her chin. Outside the window the forest stood black against the dark sky. The stars shimmered faintly. The wind came creeping, first slow, then stronger. Branches scraped against the window pane. It almost sounded like fingers trying to get in. And in the middle of the wind, so faint that she thought she imagined it, Livia heard something. A voice. A name. Her name. She sat up in bed. Her heart thudded. Listening. The wind fell quiet. Silence returned. But Livia knew what she had heard. The forest had whispered her name. Chapter 2. The Fox. The next morning, Livia was woken by sunlight seeping in through the curtains. She had dreamt of the forest, of voices winding between the trees, like fog. At the breakfast table, Grandma Viola was reading an old book with a worn cover. She looked up when Livia entered.
Good morning, darling. Did you sleep well?
I think I heard something last night. In the wind. Grandma Viola smiled. A strange kind of smile. Like she knew something she wasn't saying.
The forest speaks mostly at dusk and dawn. That's when the veil is thinnest between what we see and what we don't,
she said, spreading butter on a slice of bread for Livia.
Take a walk today. Get to know the woods. But stay on the path before night falls. And Livia?
She placed her hand over Livia's.
If someone needs help, you help them. The forest never forgets kindness.
Livia stepped outside shortly after breakfast. The air was crisp and clean, full of the scent of moss and damp leaves. The forest looked different in daylight, still dense but not as dark. Sunbeams pierced through the branches like golden spears. She followed a narrow path winding between the tall pines. Her boots sank into the soft earth. Somewhere, far off, a woodpecker tapped at a tree. Then she heard it. A sound, faint, a whimpering. Livia stopped, listened. There it was again. To the left, behind a thicket of dense birch. She left the path. Branches tugged at her jacket. Leaves slid under her feet. But the sound grew louder, clearer. And then she saw it. A fox. Small, with reddish-brown fur and a white patch on its chest. It lay on its side, breathing hard. One front paw was lifted slightly, trembling. Around the paw glittered the shards of broken glass, an old bottle, forgotten and shattered. The fox looked at Livia with sad eyes, but not filled with fear, but with hope.
Oh, no! Oh, you poor little fox! Oh, my goodness!
She sank to her knees. The fox remained completely still, as if it somehow knew Livia wouldn't hurt it. She looked at the paw. Tiny shards of glass were stuck in the fur and skin. Blood had run down, but not that much. It looked bad, but not dangerous.
Oh, humans. Silly, silly humans. They litter and innocent animals like you suffer for it. Oh, I'll help you, I promise. But please, don't bite me, okay?
She took a deep breath, then gently removed the larger pieces first, one by one, carefully. The fox laid still, letting out only the faintest whimper now and then. The smaller shards were more stubborn. Livia had to use her nails, pulling them from the fur with gentle care.
Oh, I know. They're almost done now.
At last, all the glass was gone. Livia pulled off her scarf. She wrapped it gently around the fox's paw, not too tight, just enough to protect it. And the fox let her do it. It simply lay there, watching her the whole time.
I can't leave you like this. Here, come with me. I'll hide you somewhere safe.
She lifted the fox. It was lighter than she'd expected, thin beneath the fur. She carried it all the way back through the forest, past the path, around the house, to the woodshed behind it. Inside it was dry and smelled of timber. She laid out old blankets in a corner and placed the fox there. It curled up and fell asleep, exhausted. Livia fetched a bowl of water from the pump and placed it nearby. The fox opened one eye, looked at her, and then, so faintly she almost missed it, it wagged its tail. Just once, like a little thank you. Then it fell asleep again, completely drained.
Sleep now, little fox. I'll come back tomorrow.
That night, Livia lay once more in bed, staring up at the ceiling. She thought about the fox, about the way it had looked at her, about how it felt to help something alive, something so helpless, something that needed her. the wind came again. Softer this time, but unmistakable. And within the breeze, so close she could have sworn someone stood just outside the window, she heard it. "Thank you, Livia." 3 words. Clear. Impossible. Livia sat up in bed, her heart pounding. She stared at the window, but there was no one there. Only the forest, and the wind, and something that might, just might, be watching in the dark. Chapter 3. The Meeting. Livia woke early the next morning. She dressed quickly and slipped out before Grandma Viola was awake. The grass was covered in dew, sparkling in the pale dawn light. She hurried to the woodshed, but when she opened the door, the fox was gone. The blankets still lay where she had left them. The bowl of water was empty, but the fox was nowhere to be found. Livia stood motionless in the doorway. Her heart sank a little. She had hoped to see it again, to know that it was all right. And then she saw them. The paw prints. Small, but clear, in the damp ground outside the woodshed. But they didn't lead toward the forest edge. They led into the woods, deeper than the path ever went. And there, beside the paw prints, something shimmered in the grass. A feather. Livia bent down and picked it up. It was long and iridescent. Not from any bird she recognized, though she didn't know that many birds to begin with. It was black, but shifted in green and copper when she turned it, soft as silk. She looked toward the forest. The prints continued, straight between the trees. Livia hesitated only a moment. Then she followed them. She walked farther than she had ever gone. The path was gone now. The trees grew thicker, older, their bark like wrinkled skin. Moss covered everything, stones, roots, fallen trunks. The air felt different in here, heavier, as if it were waiting. The paw prints continued, and now Livia saw something else, too. Small flowers that had no business blooming in October. White with thin petals, glowing faintly in the shadows. She followed them, and suddenly the forest opened up. A clearing, perfectly round, like a ring. Sunlight streamed down through the branches in soft beams. In the center lay a wide, flat stone covered in moss, and all around it, those white flowers were growing wild. And there, by the stone's edge, stood a young woman. She was tall and slender, dressed in layers that looked like cloth and leaves, in greens and browns and grays. Her hair was thick, long, and golden like wheat, falling all the way down to her thighs. A crown woven from the white flowers rested on her head. When she moved, and she moved like nothing Livia had ever seen, it was as if the wind itself had taken form. On her hand sat a large black raven, glossy and still, with eyes like tiny glass beads. One of its wings hung at a strange angle. The woman held the bird gently with one hand and touched its wing with the other. She whispered something, words Livia couldn't make out, words that somehow sounded like wind, water, and creaking branches. Where her fingers brushed the wing, a faint glow pulsed, green and gold, like sunlight through leaves. It lasted only a moment. The raven cawed, not in pain, but with a sound that felt like gratitude. Then it spread both wings, now whole, and soared into the sky. The woman watched it go and smiled. Then she turned and looked straight at Livia. Livia stood there frozen. Her heart pounded so hard she was certain that the woman could hear it. But the woman only kept smiling. Her eyes were pale, almost transparent like smoke or morning mist.
"You are Livia,"
she said. Not a question, a knowing. Her voice was soft, but strange, like wind in the trees. Livia didn't answer. She couldn't. The woman stepped closer. She moved like a shadow. Her feet barely seemed to touch the ground.
"You helped the fox. You removed the glass. You wrapped the paw. You gave water." That was you. You said thank you. Last night.
The woman tilted her head like a bird.
The forest says thank you when someone listens. And you listened. My name is Mylla.
She put her hand on her heart, gently bowed her head, and slightly curtsied. Livia didn't know what to do, so she did the same.
You already seem to know my name, somehow. Do you live here?
Mylla smiled again.
Yes, you could say that.
She walked back toward the stone. When her fingers passed over a low branch, the pulse of light returned. That same green warmth moving through the bark before fading. Mylla sat gracefully on the moss.
You may return here, if you like, to the clearing, whenever you need,
she said, resting her hand on the moss-covered stone beside her. The light pulsed again, softly, where her palm touched it.
Or you can call for me, if you need help, or simply if you want to talk. Call for you? How do I call for you?
Mylla stood and walked to a pine at the edge of the clearing. She pressed her palm against its bark, and the tree, Livia knew it. It glowed faintly from within, as if something alive moved through its core.
Place your hand on a tree, feel the bark, and whisper my name. The forest will carry it. I will hear, and I will come,
she said, lifting her hand. The light faded.
The forest trusts you now. What? How does it know it can?
Mylla looked up toward the treetops, toward the light filtering through.
The forest always knows. The earth, she is the mother. Gaia. She sees who takes and who gives. You gave and you listened. That is why you are welcome.
She looked back at Livia. Her eyes were so pale they almost seemed to glow. Livia didn't know what to say. She didn't even know what to think. All she knew was that she wasn't afraid. Quite the opposite. She felt safer than she had in a long time. But still, it was time to go.
I have to go back now. Grandma's probably wondering where I am.
Mylla nodded.
You go. But come back, Livia. There is much I want to show you.
Livia took a few steps back. Mylla didn't move. She just sat there on the stone, surrounded by the white flowers. And then Livia heard something. A rustle in the bushes around the clearing. A hare hopped out. It jumped right up to Mylla, completely unafraid. It sat up on its hind legs and looked at her. Mylla reached out her hand. The hare sniffed her fingers. And then, just as silently as it came, it disappeared into the forest again. Livia stood enchanted. Wild animals were afraid of people, always. But not of Mylla. When she reached Grandma Viola's house, Viola was standing on the porch with a cup of tea.
"You've been in the forest?"
she said, not as a question. Livia nodded.
"So, did you meet anyone?"
Viola asked, raising the cup to her lips. Livia looked at her, at those wise, watchful eyes.
"Yeah, no, you know what, Grandma? I don't know. I don't know who I met,"
she said hesitantly, but with a spark in her eyes. Grandma Viola smiled, a small, wistful smile.
"Then I'd say you probably met someone important."
Chapter 4. The Secrets of the Forest. In the days that followed, Livia and Mylla met every single day. At first, Livia would go to the clearing and wait. But then she learned. Place a hand on a tree near the forest's edge. Feel the rough bark against the palm. And whisper her name. Mylla. And the forest, Gaia, and Mylla always answered. Sometimes Livia saw her walking between the trees as if she just happened to be nearby, but Livia knew better. Mylla always appeared too quickly, too silently, as if distance meant nothing to her.
"You called?"
Mylla would say, smiling, her eyes pale as mist in the morning light.
I wanted to see you."
And it was true. She did. More than she had wanted anything in a long time. They wandered through the woods together. Mylla showed her things Livia had never seen. A brook where water flowed up the rocks. White moss that glowed softly when the darkness fell. An ancient oak whose bark formed a face.
"The forest is full of secrets. You just have to know where to look,"
Mylla said, brushing her hand along the oak's trunk. A faint light pulsed beneath her palm. They often sat beside the large stone in the clearing. Mylla picked berries for Livia, blueberries sweeter than any she had ever tasted, and raspberries still growing despite the autumn chill.
"How do you know all of this? About the forest, I mean, and all its secrets?"
Mylla looked up toward the treetops once again, where leaves shimmered in the wind.
I've always known,"
she said quietly, picking up a pine cone from the ground. She held it in her hand, and the light pulsed, and the cone slowly opened like a flower. Livia gasped.
"How did you do that?"
Mylla placed the cone in Livia's hand.
"The forest and I are one and the same. What it feels, I feel. What I ask, it gives,"
she said, looking at Livia for a long time. Livia sat quietly, turning the pine cone in her hands. Then, gathering up courage, she spoke.
"You know, My grandma told me about the forest creatures. The gnomes, the earth spirits, the neck, being born from old forests when the wild is left untouched. They protect the woods, punish those who take too much, and help those who give. She told me about the forest spirits too. She told me about the skogsrå.
Livia watched Mylla, waiting for a reaction, a smile, a nod, nervousness, something. But Mylla's face remained still. After a long silence, Livia whispered,
Mylla, are you a skogsrå?
Mylla gently placed a finger to her lips.
Shh. We don't ask questions like that, Livia,
she said, smiling.
What? Well, why not?
Mylla leaned back against the stone. Her eyes were filled with something ancient and deep.
Because some secrets must remain unspoken. Some truths, if said aloud, can break the magic,
she said, picking a white flower from the ground. She smelled it, her eyes half closed.
But I can tell you about the forest spirits called the skogsrå, about the things your grandmother might not have dared to say or didn't know. There are many kinds, different bloodlines, different tribes. Some have tails, some have a hollow back like rotted tree trunks.
Livia's eyes went wide. Her mouth opened in surprise, but it quickly snapped shut again when she saw Mylla giggle softly.
The skogsrå protects the animals, the trees, everything that lives in the mother's care. They punish those who harm the forest, those who hunt too much, who burn and cut without cause, who take and never give back. But they help those who show kindness. Children, gentle with animals. People who listen to the whispers of the wind. People like you,
she said, meeting Livia's eyes. Livia felt warmth rise to her cheeks.
Are there many skogsrå now?
She asked. Mylla's smile faded slightly.
Fewer and fewer. The skogsrå are born from belief. When humans believe in the forest, in magic, in secrets, then they can exist. But when no one believes anymore,
she trailed off.
They disappear?
Livia asked.
Well, fewer are born. And it's been a long time since belief lived strongly in man,
Mylla said, looking away. For the first time, Livia saw something in her eyes that reminded her of sorrow.
If a skogsrå is revealed, if someone truly sees her for what she is, if the full truth is confirmed, then the magic is broken.
Mylla continued. Livia sat very still. Her heart was pounding.
What happens then?
She asked. Mylla was quiet for a long time. She stared down at her hands.
She becomes mist between the trees for the one who once saw her. But she is still there, but unseen, untouchable. The mother hides her,
she said, so softly that Livia could barely hear.
Forever?
Mylla looked up. Her eyes shone with longing.
Almost always. But there is a way. Though it's hard for humans,
she said, picking up another white flower.
Tell me,
Livia begged. Mylla smelled the flower.
The magic must be restored. It takes more than words, more than belief in the heart. It takes action. Hands that give back to the mother what she gave.
She looked at Livia.
The mother always listens to those who truly believe, who see her. And when more voices gather at the trees, then the magic is stronger than the breaking.
She fell silent again, a small wistful smile on her lips.
But that's rare now. Humans have forgotten how to see, how to give, how to truly believe, how to see with more than the eyes, how to know without knowing.
She paused.
For if the truth is confirmed, then it's all over.
Livia opened her mouth to ask more, but before she could, a squirrel bounded into the clearing. It stopped in front of Mylla, stood on its hind legs. Mylla reached out. The squirrel quickly climbed up her arm and perched on her shoulder, like it had always belonged there. Livia laughed. She couldn't help it.
They really do like you,
she said.
They know I'm a friend,
Mylla replied simply. The squirrel climbed down again and vanished up a nearby pine. They sat in silence for a while, just the two of them, while the shadows stretched long and the sun sank low.
Mylla?
Livia said at last.
Yes, Livia. Yes, Livia. I'm glad I found you.
Mylla turned. Her eyes sparkled.
And I am glad you see me,
she said. Rising to her feet, she reached out a hand.
Come, I want to show you something.
They walked deeper into the forest, to a place where the land sloped down toward a small, beautiful stream. The water was crystal clear. On the bottom, stones glowed in every color, green, blue, red like embers.
This is one of the forest's hearts. Those who drink here are never truly parted from the woods. A part of them stays, always.
Mylla said, crouching down. She cupped her hands, dipped them into the water. The light pulsed through it, green and golden. She offered it to Livia. Livia hesitated only a moment. Then she drank. The water was cold and clean and tasted like nothing else. Like pine needles and moss, morning dew, summer and autumn, everything all at once. As she swallowed, she felt something, a warmth spreading from her chest through her whole body, as if the forest itself had touched her soul.
Now the forest and its beings are a part of you, and you are a part of it, forever.
Mylla said softly, smiling. And Livia smiled back. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel alone. Chapter 5. The Fawn. A few days later, when the autumn leaves lay thick like a golden carpet on the ground, Livia called for Mylla at the tall pine by the forest edge. She placed her hand against the bark, felt its rough surface against her palm, took a deep breath, and whispered her name.
Mylla.
She came, as always, swift and silent, from where no path existed. She smiled when she saw Livia.
You called?
Hi! I just wanted to... wait. Do you hear that? That sound, it was... Again, it's like a call. Mylla froze. Her eyes gleamed.
You hear her. You hear her. The forest. Gaia,
she said, her voice full of wonder and joy.
Is that her?
Mylla nodded, took Livia's hand and squeezed it.
You are truly a part of the forest now. Come. She's calling you. Us. She needs us to be somewhere. Come, quickly. Keep your eyes forward and follow the feeling in your heart. I'll follow you.
They followed no path. They moved on instinct. Mylla's fingers brushed branches and tree trunks, and where she touched, the faint green pulse of light appeared. Then she stopped. Do you hear that? Mylla whispered. Livia listened. Yes, there it was. A sound. Faint. Frightened. Almost like crying.
What is that? Someone who needs us. Hurry.
Now they ran, side by side through the forest. Livia felt it in her whole being. They were going the right way. Branches scratched at her clothes. Roots tried to trip her feet, but Mylla's hand kept her steady. And then they saw it. A narrow brook, deep despite its size, had cut through the ground. And between two large rocks, where the water flowed the fastest, something had become trapped. A fawn. Tiny, maybe only a few months old. Its fur was light brown with white spots. One of its hind legs was wedged between the rocks, and water rushed over its chest. It struggled, cried out, trying to break free, but the rocks held tight. Its mother stood beside the brook, stomping and crying out in panic. Mylla rushed to the edge. She studied the brook, the stones, the position of the fawn. Then she turned to Livia. Her face was serious.
Livia, I'm too big. I can't reach between the stones without hurting it worse. And if I move them, the whole bank could collapse. But you're small enough, slender enough. You can reach.
Livia looked down at the water. It wasn't that deep, maybe up to her knees, but it was flowing fast, and the water was cold. The rocks looked slippery, and the fawn, frightened, might kick, might bite.
I don't know if I can.
Mylla placed her hands on Livia's shoulders. Her eyes shone.
Yes, you can. The mother knows it. That's why she led us here. That's why she called you. Why you heard her.
She pointed to the flat rock, jutting out just above where the fawn was trapped.
Climb onto that stone. Lie on your stomach. Reach down. I'll guide you. We'll do this. Together.
Livia nodded. Her heart pounded. But that warmth was back in her chest. That same warmth she'd felt when she drank from the heart of the forest.
The mother believes in you, Livia. And she will help you. If you believe she will.
Mylla whispered. Livia climbed carefully onto the stone. It was slick with moss, but wide. She lay flat, just as Mylla had said, and crawled her way to the edge. Below, the fawn lay trembling. Its eyes were wide with fear.
Easy now, little one. Oh, I'm going to help you, sweet, beautiful baby, I promise. Good, Livia, good. Reach down with your right hand. Feel along the leg. Find where it's caught.
Mylla called from the edge. Her voice was steady, calming. Livia reached. The water was freezing. It surged around her arms. She felt the soaked, slippery fur. Then, the rock. And there, a narrow crack where the leg had slipped in and couldn't come free.
I feel it. I feel it, Mylla. Good. Breathe deep, Livia. Relax. Feel the mother's calm inside you. You need to breathe. You need the oxygen to endure the cold and the strength to do what must be done. Panic won't help you. Now, hold on to the leg, gently, and push away the small stone beside it. It will move. The mother will help you.
Livia did as she was told, one hand beneath the leg and the other against the stone. As she pushed, nothing. She tried again, harder. Still nothing.
I can't. It won't move. It won't move.
Mylla looked at her with warmth.
Yes, it will move. You can do it, Livia. It will move. But not with your hands alone. Move the stone with your heart. Feel the Great Mother in the stone. Ask her. She will move it. She will hear you.
Livia closed her eyes. The ice-cold water surged around her arms. The fawn cried out, but she breathed deeply and listened inward, and suddenly she could feel it. Stillness, warmth spreading from her chest. She felt the forest all around her, the trees, the earth, the roots beneath the soil, the animals, everything alive. Everything was breathing.
Please, Mother, help us. I know you can.
And then, as if in answer, she felt it. The pulse of warmth through the stone. Just like when Mylla touched the trees, the stone gave way. Livia lifted the fawn's leg gently and pulled it free. The fawn scrambled up, shaking, and leapt to the shore, straight to its mother. They stood together, trembling, soaked, but safe. The mother licked the fawn's head, and then something strange happened. The doe walked slowly to the edge, to where Livia sat, soaked and shivering on the rock, and gently bowed its head. And then the mother and fawn walked away and lay down in a nearby grove to rest after the ordeal. Livia stayed on the rock, breathless, soaked, and then she laughed. She couldn't help it. They had done it. Together. Mylla reached out a hand and helped her up.
You were amazing,
Mylla said, smiling. Her eyes shone brighter than ever.
The mother helped me. She did. But only because you asked. Because you believed she would.
They stood there a moment, on the bank by the brook, muddy and soaked, but joyful. Livia had never felt more alive. And then Mylla turned to go, and a sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing. Mylla's long golden hair, which had always hung close to her back, lifted. And in that moment, Livia saw what she wasn't supposed to see. Mylla's back, or where her back should have been. But there was nothing. Just a black hole. Emptiness. Like a tree hollowed from within. Dark. Hidden by her hair that gently fell back. But it was too late. Livia gasped, and Mylla heard it. She turned. Slowly. Their eyes met. Mylla knew. She saw it in Livia's face. The recognition. The truth.
You saw.
Livia couldn't speak. Could barely breathe.
Remember, she always answers those who speak not just with words, but with action.
And then she was gone. Only mist remained. Forest fog. White. Thin. Dancing between the trees. It floated for a moment, and around Livia like one final embrace, then slowly faded and vanished. Livia stood alone by the brook.
No!
She ran to the nearest tree, slammed her hand against the bark, hard enough to hurt. Panic surged in her chest. Tears burned in her eyes.
Mylla! Come back! Mylla!
She called, again and again, trying tree after tree, hand to bark, name on her lips, just like she had been taught, just like it always worked. But now, the forest was silent. No one came. Livia sank to her knees by the last tree, hands against the bark, tears running down her cheeks. And then she noticed the white flowers, the ones that had always bloomed wherever Mylla walked, that glowed faintly in the shadows, that marked the way to the clearing. They were fading. One by one, the petals fell, turned grey, and crumbled into mist, as if the forest itself was mourning the loss of its magic. And that is the end of part 1 of Mylla's Secret. And no, the story isn't quite over yet, but sometimes certain secrets need a little time to settle. Part 2, where you'll find out if there is a way to bring Mylla back, arrives next week on Friday, November 7th, 2025. If you enjoyed this tale, share it with someone who still believes in magic. And if you want to support SoundTales so more stories like this can be created, you can find me on Patreon under The Tale Tree. I will drop the full story there after part 2 drops. The link is in the description. And until then, listen to the wind. Maybe it whispers your name too. Thank you for listening to part 1 of Mylla's Secret today. And I'll see you again soon, right here on SoundTales.